I don't know why I'm telling this now. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe I just want someone, anyone, to believe me before I start to question what's real and what isn't. I've been a trucker for nearly 22 years. Seen just about everything you can imagine: bad wrecks, strange people, sleepless nights that blur into one another. But what happened on Highway 99, it stayed with me. Not like a memory, more like a shadow that never lets go. It was a foggy night in November. The kind of cold that sticks to your bones, makes you feel like the whole world's holding its breath. I was hauling a load from Sacramento down to Bakersfield, produce, nothing special. I was already late and running on caffeine pills and lukewarm coffee. The highway was nearly empty, just me and the sound of tires on wet pavement. I was cruising through one of those long, desolate stretches when I saw her. She was standing on the shoulder. A young woman, maybe mid-20s, wearing a white dress that clung to her in the fog. No luggage, no phone, no flashlight, just standing there. I should have kept driving. I knew better. Every instinct in me said don't stop. But something about her made me ease off the gas. Maybe it was the way she was looking down at the ground like she didn't belong in this world. Or maybe I was just tired and stupid. I rolled the window down a crack. "You all right?" I asked. She looked up, slowly, like she hadn't heard a voice in years. Her eyes were dark and distant, but she nodded. Then she said something soft, so soft I almost didn't catch it. "Can you take me home?" That was it. Nothing more. I should have said no, but instead, I unlocked the passenger door and told her to hop in. She moved slowly, deliberately, like someone remembering how to walk. She climbed in and shut the door without a word. She sat there with her hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead. I asked her where home was, and she said, Glen Hollow Road, just past the orchard. Glen Hollow. That road had been shut down for years, ever since a rock slide wiped out part of the hill. It was one of those places locals don't talk about anymore. I looked at her, half expecting a grin or some kind of joke, but she just kept staring out the windshield. I didn't argue. I turned off the main route and followed her directions. The fog got thicker. My headlights barely cut through it. The radio started acting up, flickering between static and this faint, old melody. Something that sounded like it belonged in a music box. When I looked over at her, I noticed her dress was soaked at the hem, dirty like she'd been walking through mud. Her skin looked pale, unnaturally pale, and she hadn't blinked once since getting in the cab. I was starting to get that uneasy feeling. The kind you don't talk about unless you're alone. The kind where the air feels heavier. We drove in silence for miles. Eventually, she said, "It's just up ahead." I nodded, but when I turned to say something else, she was gone. Just like that. Passenger seat empty. Door still shut. No sound. No movement. But where she'd been sitting, there was a wet handprint on the leather. And something small and metallic left behind, a brooch. Silver. Shaped like a bird. Wings spread. I pulled over fast, heart slamming in my chest. I jumped out, checked the road, the ditches, the back of the truck. Nothing. She'd vanished. I should have driven away. I know that now. But instead, I kept going. I reached Glen Hollow Road. It was overgrown and cracked, just like I remembered. Trees hung low over the path, and I had to weave around fallen branches. At the end of it was a house I hadn't seen in over a decade, an old Victorian-style thing, long abandoned. But someone had been there. There were candles burning in the windows. Fresh wax. Flickering light. I got out and stepped inside. The air was cold. Not just chilly, cold like winter in a house without a soul. The living room was filled with dust and broken furniture. But on the fireplace mantel were photographs. Black and white. Old. One of them stopped me cold. It was her. The hitchhiker. Same dress. Same face. Under the photo was a yellowed newspaper clipping. Emily Hartwell, 23, presumed dead after tragic car accident. Body never recovered. The date? November 12, 2004. Exactly 20 years ago. And suddenly, it came rushing back. The memory I'd buried. I was still a rookie driver back then. Green. Cocky. It was raining hard that night. I took a curve too fast. My trailer swung wide. I felt the bump, like I'd hit something. I told myself it was a deer. I never stopped. But it wasn't a deer. It was her. I left her out there. And somehow she remembered, even if I didn't. I don't know what I said out loud. Maybe I begged. Maybe I cried. But I felt her behind me. Felt the cold rise up my spine. And then I heard her voice. "I never made it home," she said. "Now neither will you." I turned. She was at the top of the stairs. Eyes hollow. Dress torn. Face blank. I ran. I didn't look back. I started the truck and tore out of there like hell itself was on my tail. I didn't stop until the sun came up. Didn't speak to anyone for days. But that wasn't the end. The next night, my radio turned on by itself. Same old melody. Same humming voice. And the night after that, I found mud on my boots. I hadn't been outside. Then this morning, I woke up to a familiar silver brooch on my kitchen table. Same bird. Same outstretched wings. What handprint beside it? I don't drive Highway 99 anymore. Haven't in years. But I know I will again. It's only a matter of time. Because some roads don't let you go. And some passengers never really leave. So if you're out there, driving that stretch alone, and you see a woman in a white dress on the side of the road, don't stop. No matter how cold she looks. No matter how lost she seems. Because she's not looking for a ride. She's looking for someone to remember. And this time, she might choose you. I've always had a strange relationship with old things. Not antiques exactly, more like objects that feel like they've lived. The kind of stuff that seems to carry echoes. You can feel it when you touch them, when the air changes around them. Some things hum with history. Others feel like they're waiting. But nothing ever felt like that mirror. It was a freezing February afternoon when we found it. My sister Eliza and I were browsing through Harold's Thrift on Millerton Avenue, this dusty little second-hand shop tucked between an abandoned laundromat and a boarded-up gas station. The kind of place that smells like old leather, mothballs, and something vaguely metallic that sticks to the back of your throat. Eliza was always dragging me to places like that. She had a thing for vintage decor, clawfoot tubs, rusted picture frames, old oil paintings of people long dead. She said she liked giving forgotten things a second life. Personally, I just liked spending time with her. She was my little sister, only a year younger, but she always felt like the older one, more grounded, more decisive. That day, she was looking for something to hang over the fireplace in her new apartment. I was looking for a reason to tell her we should leave. The store was dimly lit, the kind of place where you expect to find something crawling in the shadows if you look too long. Harold, the owner, was asleep behind the counter with a portable radio playing soft static beside him. A taxidermy owl stared down at us from a crooked shelf. We wandered for a while. Old lamps, bins of records, a pile of stained dolls. I was about to suggest we head to Target instead when Eliza gasped. "Look at this," she said. She was already halfway across the store, half hidden behind a bookcase. I followed the sound of her voice, and when I rounded the corner, I stopped cold. It was a mirror, tall, maybe 6 feet, framed in dark wood that was chipped and weathered like driftwood dragged through time. It leaned against the wall at an awkward angle, half buried under a dusty tarp. But what struck me wasn't the frame. It was the glass. The surface wasn't cracked or broken, but it was off, fogged at the edges like breath had been trapped inside for decades. The center shimmered ever so slightly, like a heat mirage, but it was cold in the room. Freezing, even. And when I looked into it, I swear I saw something move behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. Just a tipped-over chair and a wall of old paintings. I turned back and found Eliza already kneeling in front of it, her face inches from the glass. "I love it," she said, eyes wide. "It's beautiful. Looks haunted as hell." I laughed nervously. "Exactly. It's creepy." She tilted her head. "That's the point." I wanted to tell her no, that we should keep looking, that this thing didn't feel right. But then Harold shuffled over, rubbing his eyes and muttering about how nobody ever noticed that old thing. Said it had been there since before he bought the place. Came in with an estate haul from upstate. No paperwork. No tag. Just appeared in the back corner like it had been waiting. $40 and it's yours, he said with a shrug. Frankly, I'd be happy to see it go. That should have been our second warning. The first was the way the glass distorted Eliza's face when she looked into it. Not like a funhouse mirror, more like it lingered on her expression after she'd turned away. I blinked and it was back to normal, but I remember that chill in my chest, like the mirror had memorized her face. Still, she bought it. Harold helped us load it into her car, and I rode with my hand pressed against the passenger door, trying not to glance into the rear view. Even covered by a blanket, I felt its presence. The drive was quiet. Eliza hummed along to the radio, completely unfazed. I watched her out of the corner of my eye, wondering why I couldn't shake the feeling that something had just changed, that something had followed us out of that store. When we got to her apartment, she carried it in like it weighed nothing. She propped it up in the hallway just across from her bedroom door, tilted slightly so it caught the morning light. She stood in front of it, smiling, smoothing down her hair. Then she turned to me. "Well?" she asked. "It's something," I said. She laughed. "You hate it." I didn't answer. I didn't know how to put it into words. That mirror felt wrong, like it didn't belong anywhere real, like it had plans. Before I left, I caught my reflection in it one last time. My expression looked off, not scared, just unfamiliar, like I was looking at a version of myself that had made a different decision, one that stayed in the room, staring back after I'd turned away. I remember shaking my head and muttering, "It's just a mirror." But deep down, I already knew it wasn't. It was a doorway. I just didn't know yet which side I was on. It started small. That's how these things always begin, subtle enough to brush off, but unsettling enough to plant something in your gut that never really leaves. A week had passed since Eliza brought the mirror home. I hadn't seen her in person, but we texted, FaceTimed, sent each other stupid memes like we always did. She sounded fine, mostly, but there was something different. Her messages were short, a little scattered. She'd forget things mid-conversation or go silent for hours. At first, I blamed it on the new apartment stress. Moving, unpacking, new job. That stuff wears you down. But then she called me one night, not to chat, just to ask me something weird. "Do you think reflections can lie?" I remember staring at my phone for a second, unsure what she meant. "I mean," she went on, "can a mirror show you something that isn't you? Like it's pretending?" I laughed. "You mean like your evil twin?" She didn't laugh back. There was silence on the line. Then she whispered, "Sometimes I think she blinks when I don't." The words sat heavy between us. I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to tell her she was just tired, stressed out, overthinking. But there was a tightness in her voice that told me this wasn't a joke. "I don't like walking past it at night," she added. "Sometimes I see her already looking at me before I've even turned the corner." I swallowed. "Eliza, maybe you should get rid of it." Another pause. "I can't," she said. "I tried to move it yesterday. It's heavier than it was. Like it doesn't want to leave." That's when I knew something was wrong. I offered to come over, maybe help her cover it or take it down, but she brushed it off. Said she was fine, that she was probably just being dramatic, that the whole mirror is haunted thing was getting in her head. Still, I started calling more often, visiting on weekends. And every time, I noticed more cracks. Her place was darker. Not just the lighting, the whole mood. Like the apartment had grown colder, quieter. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. The kind that listens. The first time I visited after that call, I noticed she'd hung a thick blanket over the mirror. It was draped like a corpse under a sheet. I asked her about it, and she gave me this half-smile. She was giving me nightmares. Then she changed the subject. Over the next few weeks, Eliza started slipping away, not physically, but mentally. Her voice would flatten during conversations. Sometimes she'd just stare at me, eyes glazed, like she was watching something behind me. And one night during a FaceTime call, I swear her reflection moved out of sync. She was sitting on the couch, hair tied back, hoodie on, talking about work. But in the mirror behind her, the version of her sitting on the couch turned its head before she did. Only by half a second. Just enough to make my stomach drop. I didn't say anything at first. I wanted to believe I imagined it. I even rewound the screen recording I'd taken automatically through a third-party app, but by then, the mirror's glare made it impossible to see anything clearly. 2 nights later, things got worse. She called me around midnight. Her voice was shaking. "She came out," Eliza whispered. I sat up in bed. "What do you mean?" The mirror. She stepped out. I didn't see her, not at first. I just heard breathing. Then my bedroom door opened by itself. And she was standing there. Me. Just smiling. My blood ran cold. Eliza, listen to me. Get out of the apartment. Now. I can't, she said, her voice cracking. I think she's still inside. She went back in, but the mirror's not covered anymore. I didn't uncover it. I threw on clothes, keys in hand. Stay on the line. I'm coming over. I broke every speed limit on the way to her building. The whole time, the call was active. But all I could hear was faint static and a soft, whispering noise I couldn't make out. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might black out behind the wheel. When I got to her door, I expected screaming. Silence. Something. But the apartment was dead quiet. The lights were off. I knocked. No answer. I pushed the door open. It wasn't even locked. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Like someone had staged it. Not a pillow out of place. No dishes in the sink. Her favorite sweater folded neatly on the back of the couch. Eliza. I called out, stepping inside. The air was cold. Not winter cold, something else. Like the kind of cold you feel in the pit of your stomach when you know you're being watched. I walked down the hallway, past the bathroom, past the closed door to her room. That's when I saw it. The mirror. It was uncovered now, standing tall and straight at the end of the hall. But it wasn't just reflecting me. No. There was another version of me, standing in the hallway, staring back. But this one, it smiled. I didn't. Its expression didn't match mine. Its head tilted just slightly to the left. Its eyes were hungry. I stepped back, heart thundering. Then something behind me creaked. I spun around, nothing. Just her hallway, stretching longer than it should have, walls pulsing with shadows that didn't belong. I called her name again. Once. Twice. No answer. I walked to her room, gripped the doorknob, and opened it slowly. Empty. No signs of a struggle. No clothes missing. Her phone still on the charger beside the bed. Closet doors open. Window locked. She was gone. Just gone. I didn't call the police that night. I sat on the floor, staring at the mirror for almost an hour, trying to convince myself I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But I had. And I knew, deep down, that whatever that thing was, it had taken her place. Or maybe it hadn't replaced her. Maybe it had simply taken her back through the glass and left something else behind. I didn't sleep the night Eliza vanished. I just sat there in her living room, staring at that mirror, trying to convince myself she'd walk through the door at any moment with some dumb excuse. Maybe she went out for air. Maybe she'd been sleepwalking. Maybe I was the one losing it. But by morning, it hit me. Eliza wasn't coming back, and something else might have taken her place. I stayed in the apartment for 2 more days. I didn't tell anyone she was gone. I couldn't. What would I say? My sister was replaced by her reflection? They'd lock me up faster than I could explain. I combed through everything in her place, journals, emails, texts. Nothing strange. Nothing about the mirror. Nothing recent, anyway. But tucked into the back of a notebook on her kitchen counter, I found something. A torn-out magazine page folded into a square. It was an article. Local folklore stuff. The headline said, "The Woman in the Glass, a mid-19th century haunting returns." There was a blurry photo of what looked like an antique mirror in an old Victorian house. The caption read, "Believed to be connected to several disappearances in 1874. Artifact never recovered." My stomach dropped. The mirror in the picture was almost identical to Eliza's. Same twisted wood frame. Same shimmer in the glass. According to the article, back in the 1800s, a woman named Lydia Harrow was said to have gone insane after the death of her twin sister. Legend said she believed the twin had been trapped inside a mirror. She became obsessed with crossing over and eventually vanished right in front of witnesses while staring into a tall, antique glass in her father's study. The mirror was sealed in storage. But decades later, in 1923, a maid disappeared in the same house while cleaning it. Then again in 1958, a little boy this time. The family moved. The mirror was sold off with the estate. Eventually, it vanished too. Until now. Until Eliza. I stared at the article for hours. Something about it made me feel sick, like I wasn't supposed to know this. Like the mirror had let me find it, like it wanted me to know what it was. And worse, what it wanted next. I left her apartment around midnight and took the mirror with me. I don't know why. I just knew I couldn't leave it there. It felt connected to her. And maybe, just maybe, if I had it, I could bring her back. I drove it to my place and shoved it into the guest room. I didn't sleep that night either. Not because I was scared, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her reflection smiling at me. Not from across the room, from inside the mirror. She looked like Eliza. She sounded like Eliza, but she wasn't. And then came the knocking. The first time, it was just 3 slow taps on the wall beside the mirror. I froze in bed, thinking I imagined it. The next night, it came again, but closer. 3 taps. Then a voice. Soft, gentle, familiar. Let me out. It was her voice, but too calm, too smooth, like a recording with no soul behind it. I stood outside the door, heart pounding. Eliza, I whispered. Silence. Then, I'm cold in here. I gripped the doorknob, hand shaking. I wanted it to be her. God, I wanted to believe. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The next morning, the mirror was uncovered, even though I'd draped it the night before. And written in fog across the glass were the words, "You look just like her." I started unraveling fast. I stopped going to work, stopped answering calls. My apartment felt wrong. Every surface, every mirror, every window became suspect. I covered them all, but the one in the guest room stayed exposed. It wanted to be seen. And then came the dreams. In them, I'd wake up standing in front of the mirror, not just looking into it, pressed against it, forehead to glass, whispering things I couldn't remember once I woke. And always, I saw her, my sister, behind the glass, standing in a hallway that looked just like mine, only backwards, mirrored. Her eyes were wide. Her mouth was moving, but no sound came through. Until the final night. I woke up at 3:17 a.m., the exact time the phone had disconnected the night she disappeared. There was a shadow under the guest room door. Movement. I got out of bed slowly, quietly, and then I heard it. The sound of 2 people breathing. One, shallow, frantic. Mine. The other, slow, rhythmic, almost mocking. I opened the door, and the mirror was glowing. Not brightly, just enough that it lit the room in that sick, silver blue hue like the air before a thunderstorm. And in the reflection, she was back. Eliza, or something that wore her skin. She looked right at me, eyes gleaming, mouth curled into a knowing smile. She raised her hand. I couldn't move. She mouthed, "You're next." Then she reached forward and pressed her palm against the glass. And for the first time, it didn't reflect. The glass rippled. Like water. Like it was thinning. I ran. Out of the room. Out of the apartment. I didn't take my keys. My phone. Nothing. Just bolted into the street barefoot, heart hammering like it was trying to claw out of my chest. And behind me, I swear I heard glass crack. Like something was breaking through. I didn't go back to the apartment for 3 days. I stayed in a cheap motel 20 miles out of town, convincing myself I was grieving, hallucinating, anything but the truth. I kept telling myself that mirrors don't whisper. They don't pull people in. They don't take the shape of people you've lost. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Not Eliza. At least, not really. But that thing wearing her skin like a dress that didn't quite fit. Her mouth was always too wide. Her eyes too focused, too knowing. And every morning, no matter where I stayed, I'd wake up to a mirror I didn't remember being there. Old, ornate, familiar, sitting directly across from my bed, no matter the room layout. I smashed the first one, left immediately, booked another room, different motel, different town. I wrapped every reflective surface with towels, bed sheets, even duct tape I picked up from a gas station. But still, I'd wake to the mirror. Perfect, untouched, almost polished, like it had never been broken, like it was following me. Or worse, like I had never left. I knew then I couldn't outrun it. I had to go back. I had to face it. If not for myself, then for Eliza. I drove back just after midnight. It was colder than it should have been, and even though it was summer, the air felt like winter pressed against my skin. My building looked smaller somehow. Sunken. The outside lights were out. The windows stared blankly, like eyes that had forgotten how to blink. I climbed the stairs slowly. Every step echoed too long, like sound was getting stretched out in the dark. When I reached my floor, I froze. The apartment number was gone. There was no 3C anymore. Just bare wood, as if it had been sanded off or peeled away. I unlocked the door anyway. The key still worked. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something had changed. The air was dense, buzzing softly, like static woven into fog. The light switches didn't work, but I didn't need them. A soft, cold, blue light was pulsing from the guest room. I walked toward it without thinking, like being pulled underwater. The hallway felt longer, stretched somehow. The door to the guest room stood wide open, and inside, glowing, humming, was the mirror. It wasn't just sitting there anymore. It was alive. The glass rippled like water in moonlight, and the frame pulsed as if it were breathing. But the worst part, the truly worst part, was what I saw inside. My hallway, reflected perfectly but wrong. It was darker, deeper, flickering like a candlelit tunnel. And at the end of it, Eliza, or the thing that looked like her. She stood there, silent, her face pale and unreadable. She raised her hand and beckoned me forward, just once. Her mouth moved, but I couldn't hear what she said. And then she stepped back into the shadows. The hallway behind her twisted into impossible angles, like the inside of a funhouse collapsing on itself. And then she was gone. I should have run. I know that now. I should have left, burned the place down, never looked back. But something pulled me forward. Curiosity, guilt, love. I don't know. But I stepped forward and touched the mirror, and it gave way. Not like glass. Not like breaking. More like fog. Like skin. Like falling into a lake. Suddenly, I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was inside the mirror. Everything looked familiar, but off, flat, lifeless, reversed. Like walking through a dream painted by someone who'd only heard whispers of reality. The hallway stretched too long in both directions. The walls were the same color but darker, like they'd been stained with shadow. I couldn't hear anything. Not even my own footsteps. I walked toward the guest room, heart hammering, and that's when I heard it, soft, muffled weeping. I turned the corner. There she was, Eliza, huddled in the corner of the room, knees pulled to her chest, face buried in her arms. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I whispered her name. She looked up, and for a second, just one heart-stopping second, it was her. My sister. Same eyes. Same face. Same sadness. She mouthed something. I stepped closer. What? I asked. She mouthed it again. Not me. That's when her face cracked. Not metaphorically. Her face literally cracked, like porcelain under a hammer. Splintered right down the middle, revealing something black and wet and grinning underneath. Her skin peeled away like paper dipped in acid. The thing stood up, taller now. Its limbs bent wrong. Its mouth stretched wider than any human should. And its eyes, God help me, its eyes were mirrors. Twin black voids that reflected my terrified face back at me, but not exactly. The reflection smiled even when I didn't. Then it spoke, but not aloud. Inside my head, a voice that was mine, but twisted. You should not have come here. I tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The hallway had vanished. The mirror I entered through was gone. Just an endless wall of shifting glass behind me, and the thing in front of me, watching, smiling, still wearing Eliza's voice like a glove. It tilted its head and whispered again. You look just like her. And then it lunged. What happened next, I can't describe. My mind won't let me. I remember pressure. Cold. A silence so complete it was deafening. It wasn't pain. It wasn't fear. It was something older than either. Like I'd been unmade. And then, just as suddenly, I woke up. In my apartment. The sun was rising. My phone was buzzing next to me with dozens of missed calls. Work. Friends. Time had passed. But the mirror was gone. So was the guest room. I walked down the hallway in a daze and found the wall bricked over. No door. No frame. Like it had never existed. I told no one. What could I say? That I climbed through a mirror and fought a reflection? That my sister was taken by a thing that mimicked her face and lived behind glass? No one would believe it. They'd think I was broken. Maybe I am. Eliza's case went cold. Her name became a flyer on a pole, a post on a subreddit, another insult. But I know better. I know where she is. I feel her. And sometimes I see her. Late at night, when I pass a window or look into the dark screen of my laptop or catch the glint of glass in my bathroom, she's there. Or it is. I'm not sure anymore. Watching me. Smiling. Waiting. Once, I swear I heard it whisper, "You left me." I don't look into mirrors anymore. Not even for a second. Because I know if I do, one day, I won't see myself. I'll see her. I'll see it. And this time, it might pull me all the way through. My name's Jake Mallory. I've worked for the Search and Rescue Unit in Northern Washington for over 14 years. Forest fires, lost hikers, kids who wandered too far from camp. I've seen every kind of panic a person can feel when nature decides to humble you. But there are stories we don't put in the reports. Cases that never make it to the public dispatch logs. Hell, some of them we don't even talk about in the locker room anymore. This is one of those. It started 3 years ago. We got a call about a missing college kid, Eric Dalton, 22 years old. His friends said he went out on a solo hike along Dead Horse Trail near Mount Laurel Oak. They were camping together, and he wanted to watch the sunset alone. Classic story. We launched a grid search early the next morning. 6 teams, dogs, drones, the whole 9 yards. And I'll be honest, I wasn't worried. People go missing out here all the time. Usually we find them sitting under a tree, cold and embarrassed. But by day 3, no trace. Not even a candy wrapper. That's when things got weird. On day 4, the dogs wouldn't track past a certain ridge. Every time we tried to push them further, they whined and pulled back. I've seen dogs walk through bear dens, rattlesnake nests, even a goddamn cougar's kill site without blinking. But whatever was up past that ridge, they refused. Flat out refused. So we went without them. Me and another SAR tech named Ryan hiked 2 miles past the ridge. Dense woods. Not even deer tracks. The deeper we went, the quieter it got. No birds. No bugs. It felt wrong. Like the woods were holding their breath. Then, around 3 p.m., we found it. A staircase. Just there. In the middle of the forest. No ruins. No path. No clearing. Just this clean, gray concrete staircase rising out of the dirt like it had been dropped from a helicopter. Maybe 15 steps high, moss along the edges, but otherwise pristine. Like it had been pressure washed that morning. Ryan joked it looked like a glitch in the Matrix. I laughed, but my gut twisted. I didn't like how the trees leaned away from it, like even they wanted nothing to do with it. He walked up to the first step. I told him not to. He smirked, said, "What, you think it's cursed or something?" and took 3 steps up. That's when I heard it. A low, almost metallic hum. Not from the staircase, but around us. In the trees. In the air. Like something vibrating just outside of hearing range. Ryan froze. I asked if he felt it, but he didn't answer. He just stood there, staring straight ahead like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then his nose started bleeding. Just a thin line down his lip. His eyes were glassy. I reached up, grabbed his wrist, and yanked him back down the steps. The moment he stepped off, the humming stopped. He blinked hard, wiped his nose, and looked at me like he'd just woken up from surgery. Said he didn't remember going up at all. We didn't tell base camp. We said we found no sign and needed to regrid the area. But the next morning, Ryan didn't show up. No call, no message. Just gone. The guy had a wife and 2 kids. Never missed a day of work in his life. They found his car parked at the station. His phone inside. Keys on the seat. Like he walked away on purpose. I kept my mouth shut. But something snapped in me that day. I stopped volunteering for solo shifts. Stopped pushing deep when dogs refused. And I never, not once, stepped off trail near that ridge again. At least, not until the Martin boy vanished last month. That case, it dragged me back to those stairs. And this time, I wasn't the only one who saw what waited at the top. It was early spring when I got the call. A teenage boy named Travis Martin had gone missing up in the same section of Forest Dead Horse Trail near Mount Laroque. His family was camping nearby. Said he went to gather kindling for the fire and never came back. The moment I heard the trail name, my stomach turned. I hadn't been back to that part of the woods since Ryan disappeared. I made 100 excuses over the years: fake injuries, sudden fatigue, paperwork I forgot to file. But this time, none of it stuck. The kid was only 14, and his mom, she cried like she already knew. I suited up. We assembled a search team, 6 people, 2 dogs, thermal drone coverage. We started combing the woods by 6 a.m., and by noon, we'd already passed the ridge. And here's the thing, the staircase wasn't there. I walked the exact route I'd taken with Ryan. Same GPS coordinates. I even recognized the patch of trees that leaned out like they were flinching away. But the staircase? Gone. We searched until nightfall. I went back the next day alone. Still nothing. But then, on the 3rd morning, the dogs went wild. Not scared, focused. Tails up, noses down, tracking like I hadn't seen in years. They led us a mile and a half off course, north by northwest. And then they stopped, dead, at the edge of a small gully. That's when I saw it again. The staircase. But it wasn't the same one. This one was metal, rusted iron, bolted steps. Narrower, steeper, sitting out in the open, like someone had plucked it from an old fire escape and dumped it in the woods. No walls, no supports, no reason to be there. And at the base, a shoe. A boy's sneaker, caked in mud. Travis Martin's size and color. I radioed it in, but something in my voice must have told base I wasn't right. They told me to stay put and wait for backup, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was some part of me thinking I could finish this, close it off, bring the kid home, and finally put that damn staircase to rest. I pulled out my knife, just in case, and climbed. The metal groaned under my weight. The higher I went, the more the forest around me blurred, like heat ripples rising off asphalt. It wasn't cold, but I shivered. Every hair on my arm stood up. By the 8th step, I realized I couldn't hear the birds anymore. By the 12th, I couldn't hear anything. Not the wind, not the dogs, not even my own footsteps. At the top, I saw a platform, nothing more. Just flat metal surrounded by sky. No view of the forest, just white. Like I'd climbed into fog or a dream. And then I heard breathing. Not mine. Slow. Wet. Close. I spun around, knife raised. But no one was there. Except there was a hand. A child's hand, poking up from between 2 steps. Not moving. Just hanging there, fingers limp, the skin gray and bloated like it had been soaking in water for days. I dropped to one knee, grabbed it, and my world flipped. Suddenly, I wasn't on stairs anymore. I was in the middle of the woods again, on my back, gasping like I'd been drowning. My radio was screaming. Base was calling my name over and over. My knife was gone. The dogs were barking in the distance. And the staircase? Gone. Again. No footprints. No metal. Not even the shoe. Just me, flat on the dirt, with blood on my palms and a taste in my mouth like iron and rot. I didn't tell Base about the hand. Didn't tell them about the white fog, the breathing, or the way my GPS glitched out and showed I was standing 100 feet above sea level, on flat ground. But that night, I found something in my jacket pocket I couldn't explain. A photograph. A Polaroid. Faded and torn. In the picture was a staircase, not the one I climbed. Older. Stone, covered in vines. And standing at the top of it was a boy, wearing the same clothes Travis Martin had on when he vanished. Smiling. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was vacant, like he wasn't really there. The image had a date written in smudged ink at the bottom. June 12, 1993. 12 years before Travis was born. That's when I started digging. That's when I realized our forest wasn't the only one with stairs. I didn't sleep the night I found the photograph. Just sat in my apartment with the lights on, turning that Polaroid over and over in my hands, trying to understand what it meant. I even rubbed my fingers across the back, half expecting to feel fresh ink. But the date, June 12, 1993, was faded like it had been written decades ago. and I had no idea how it got into my pocket. So I did something I probably wasn't supposed to do. I used my ranger credentials to access the SAR incident archives. Not the public reports, the internal logs. The ones stored in a secure database we rarely touched unless a case went legal. I spent 6 hours cross-referencing disappearances in Mount Laroque's forest system. What I found made me sick. There were patterns. Not just random missing hikers or campers, clusters. Every 5 to 6 years, always around spring or early summer, always teenage boys, usually between the ages of 12 and 17. Their last known locations always fell inside a very specific, oddly shaped grid that no one ever questioned before. 12 disappearances over 40 years. No remains. No tracks. Just gone. And then there were the notes. I found 6 internal reports that had been marked as unresolved, escalate to Forest Service, with Ranger Field memos attached. All 6 mentioned stairs. Not directly. They used vague phrasing like, unusual architectural feature discovered, non-standard structure, recommend area avoidance. Or, advise team to deter after equipment interference near anomaly, vertical concrete structure. One memo had a handwritten note in the margin. Do not discuss stairs in field briefings. Let them find out themselves. If they're smart, they'll walk away. That shook me. I tracked down the author of that note, a man named Alton Briggs. Retired now. Used to be head ranger out of Elks Pass Station, 30 miles north of my zone. I didn't think he'd talk to me, but I called anyway, and he picked up on the first ring. When I told him who I was, he went quiet for a long time. I said the words. I found the stairs. He let out a shaky breath and said, then I guess you're already marked. Marked? He told me things I wish I could forget. Alton said the stairs weren't man-made, not in any traditional sense. He'd seen at least 4 different ones in his time, each in a different area of the forest, never in the same place twice. Stone, metal, wood, some wide, some narrow. One, he said, was made entirely of bone, but all of them led somewhere else. He didn't know if it was another dimension, a fold in reality, or something spiritual, only that they weren't meant for us. They were like traps, like lures, and once you got close enough, they saw you too. He said the first time he climbed a staircase, he woke up 30 miles from his truck with no gear, no memory, and blood under his fingernails. The second time, he lost a team member. The guy just vanished mid-step. 1 second there, next second gone. But what stuck with me most was what he said at the end. Don't go looking for them. They come when they want. And if you hear something at the top, don't listen. That's how they get in. He hung up before I could ask anything else. That night, I had the first dream. I was standing at the base of a spiral staircase that descended into the ground. Just down, no bottom in sight. The walls were covered in handprints, some small, some huge, all burned black into the stone. And at the bottom was my own voice, calling for help. I woke up sweating, heart pounding, ears ringing. The photograph was on my chest, but it wasn't the same one. Now it showed a different staircase, narrower, wood planks, missing pieces, and standing beside it was me. Same uniform, same boots, but older, weathered, face hollow, and written on the back in that same faded ink. You're not done yet. The next day, I got a call. 2 backpackers had reported hearing a child crying near a ravine 3 miles east of Dead Horse Trail. Said they followed the sound until they found a stone staircase hidden beneath a rock overhang. They didn't climb it, but they took a picture. They sent it to the sheriff's office. It was forwarded to our dispatch, and I recognized it immediately. It was the same one from the first Polaroid, the one from 1993, which means the stairs are back, or maybe they never left. I knew I'd go back. I think I knew the second I found that first Polaroid. Some part of me had already accepted it, that I was being pulled towards something, maybe chosen by it. Not for anything noble, more like bait on a hook. The sheriff's office sent a small team to check the coordinates the backpackers had marked. When they got there, the staircase was gone. But I went anyway. I didn't tell anyone. No official report. I packed light, wore my uniform to avoid suspicion, and drove up to Mount Laroque alone just after dawn. I left my truck at the base of Dead Horse Trail and started walking. Every footstep sounded louder than it should have. The birds were gone again. Even the wind was still. It was like the woods were holding their breath. It took me 5 hours to reach the ravine. I don't know why I expected anything different, but there they were, the stairs, just standing there under the overhang, partly swallowed by moss and shadow. Same as the photo, same as 30 years ago. And at the base, something caught my eye. Another shoe. This one was torn, soaked in mud, but it was a boy's, smaller than Travis's. I turned it over and nearly dropped it. There was a name written inside with faded Sharpie. Ryan. My brother. I hadn't said his name out loud in years. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe the photo, maybe the dreams, or maybe some part of me still believed I could fix this, that there was a way to end it, to bring him or someone back. So I climbed. The stairs were cold and slick with moss. I counted every step, 23 in total. But when I reached the top, it didn't stop. The forest was gone. I stepped onto a flat gray plain, stretching out in every direction, under a sky the color of bruises. No trees, no birds, no sun, just silence, thick and wrong. The air smelled like wet stone and rotting leaves. I turned to look behind me, but the staircase was gone. I was alone. I wondered. Minutes? Hours? It didn't matter. Time felt like a thing with teeth, chewing slowly at the edges of my thoughts. My watch didn't work. Neither did my compass. Then I saw them. Staircases. Dozens of them. Hundreds. All scattered across the horizon. Some small and crumbling. Others towering into clouds that weren't really clouds. Some upside down. Some broken halfway up, just dangling into space. And near one of them, movement. I ran toward it. The closer I got, the more the shape came into focus. A boy, maybe 14. Mud-covered. Shaking. Crying. It was Travis Martin. He was alive. When he saw me, he screamed. Not a scream of relief, terror. He backed away, shouting, "You're not real. You're not real." Over and over again. I dropped to my knees, held up my badge, my hands, begged him to listen. Finally, he stopped shaking. He stared at me for a long time, then whispered, "You look like the other one." I asked him, "What other one?" He said, "The man who came here before. The one who took Ryan." I froze. He told me there was someone else, not quite a man, not anymore. He had Ryan's face, but older, worn, and he kept leading kids up the staircases, not forcing, inviting, like a guide, like a priest. He said that thing took Ryan's voice, his face, his memories, wore them like clothes. I knew then I couldn't leave Ryan behind again. I told Travis to stay low. I said I'd distract it, whatever it was, and get him out. Then I heard it. Footsteps behind me. Slow. Measured. Echoing across the plain like thunder in a church. I turned around. It was me, but not me. It had my uniform, my build, even my voice when it spoke. "We were wondering when you'd come back." Its face was wrong. Too smooth. Like skin stretched over wax. Eyes too wide. Smile too deep. But it moved like me. Talked like me. Knew what I'd done. Knew Ryan. Knew everything. I raised my knife. It laughed. Then everything went white. I woke up on the trail. Flat on my back. Knife gone. Compass cracked. Watch ticking normally. And Travis was beside me. Alive. He was in shock. Could barely speak. But he was there. Real. Breathing. I carried him down the mountain myself. 2 days later, he was reunited with his family. The story made the local papers. Search and rescue officer rescues lost teen in 4-day wilderness ordeal. No one asked how I found him. No one asked where we'd been. I never told them about the gray plane, the staircases, or the thing that wore my face. But every few nights, I still get those dreams. New staircases, new voices, and sometimes I see Ryan. Not as a kid anymore. As a man. He stands at the top of a long, spiraling staircase, eyes empty, hand reaching out. Waiting. And on the wind, I hear my own voice whisper, "It's your turn now."